Welcome back, guys, to the latest episode 4 of Legacy of Lies. I'm your host, Gabe, and I'm here again with my co-host, Pat.
Hello, hello.
So today, we're back again. We want to touch on some ocean mysteries today. We're not going to be able to hit all of them because there's about a million of them, but we wanted to touch on a few of the bigger ones and kind of dive into, I guess, some of the more famous ones and then maybe some ones that you guys haven't heard. So what were you looking forward to talking to today, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, again, as we're kind of preparing to do our shows, and recently we got our first listener to give us a suggestion for our next episode. So we'll talk about that a little bit later prior to the end. But ocean mysteries, there's just so many. There's UFOs. I mean, the thing that's crazy about it is you could go back to like biblical times.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of years, right? And things have been going missing, anomalies, sounds, bloops, blips. And it's so, I mean, like even, sea monsters. There's just so much.
Bro, all the way from like the basilisk to UFOs to USOs to ghost ships to fucking, buried treasure. Like the ocean is just full of mystery. It's like you could never do them all.
I know. I'll look it up here during this episode. But I think it's that they say we've only traversed about 30% of the oceans.
Yeah, it's something like that. Well, mainly I think because you can't get to the bottom,
right?
It's not, doesn't make financial sense to get to the bottom, and the vast majority of it, and it's like 70% of the Earth's surface is ocean, which is fucking insane to think about.
I know. It's crazy.
Well, and there's so many areas of the ocean and even the Great Lakes, like the deep freshwater bodies of water, that weird stuff just tends to happen.
It makes me wonder, before we get into, I know you have a couple of stories to share and so do I, but it definitely makes me wonder because like the Finger Lakes, that's a big thing for missing peoples and weird stuff. And, some of the Great Lakes and all these bodies of water, it, definitely makes you wonder if it's, for some of these larger things like the ocean, is it because there's alien bases underwater? Or does it just have to do with like, geomagnetic, that part of the world, and it just so happens that these places and these bodies of water, because there's places on land like Appalachia,
right,
that have goofy stuff. So I don't know. It makes you wonder, but I tend to think it's a good place to hide.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And then, in the same capacity, even not in deep water, but in places like the Mississippi, where like, especially, around where we live in Wisconsin, every single year, there's at least one college student that mysteriously drowns in about 2 feet of water right on the banks of the Mississippi River. Every single year, without fail. It happened to a kid that I went to high school with. Actually, drowned. He was going to La Crosse, University of La Crosse, Wisconsin. And he was a really good guy, really smart guy. Liked to go to the bars like most college kids in Wisconsin do. And basically just washed up dead. His friends and I think family were there looking for him because he was out all night and nobody could find him. They called his parents and they were all out looking, and they found him at like 9 a.m, face down in like 2 feet of water.
That's crazy.
It was like 200 yards from the bar he was drinking at and like 400 yards from his apartment, which is unreal. So then that goes into like, people talk about the smiley face killer. I'm sure you've heard that, where, that is maybe one conspiracy where I don't buy in, but for those of you that don't know what the smiley face killer is, basically it revolves around in the Midwest along rivers, lakes, usually the Mississippi or the Ohio River Valley, college students, essentially that, being found dead in water, in shallow water where they shouldn't have died. In some cases, not even having alcohol in their system, which is weird. And then basically finding like smiley faces or little smiley figures on like a bridge or a tree or somewhere around where the body's found. So people formulated that maybe there's a smiley face killer that's going around and taking a certain type of college kid, because it was mostly kids between like 18 and 25.
Yeah.
And it's been happening for like 40 years in the Midwest.
Well, there's definitely no shortage of serial killers. So.
Oh, not in Wisconsin for sure. Dahmer, Geen, there's been quite a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's just something that kind of rolls into what I want to talk about, just about water in general that's mystical in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to describe it other than, I mean, even you look at a picture like what we got on the wall and you just get a certain feeling around water that people don't get around land. And maybe that's baked into our DNA or baked into, you know, us as human beings. But I think it just has a certain level of mystery built into it. And because you don't know what's under it.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I mean, scientifically, you know, you could think of the energy, you know, how energy is conducted through water. And so if you have energy that, you know, not normal electrical energy that we're used to, but if you have some sort of alien energy mixed in water, maybe it does make people feel funny. You know, maybe that's part of it.
Or the magnetism thing. A lot of people talk about, you know, the compass not working in an area next to a mysterious lake or out on the ocean where they're navigating. And I think we can roll that right into the first ocean mystery that I want to talk about. Good segue.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on a couple mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. And I know this is like almost a trope at this point because everybody's done the Bermuda Triangle, right? Every conspiracy mystery podcast has done it. And we're going to talk about some of the main ones, but I also have one that not a ton of people in my orbit have actually heard of. So I wanted to go through it, and I know I didn't send you the second one, so I kind of want to get your reaction on that because I don't think you've heard the story before. So,
but before you get started, when you talked about like the Bermuda Triangle stories and everybody's done them, But I'll tell you what, for anybody who's listening, if you listen to the story, it doesn't matter how many times you hear them. When you listen to the facts and details, at least for me, every time I'm like, that should not have happened. It's unbelievable. So yeah, go ahead.
It's crazy. So I'm going to roll into, first of all, I guess I should probably just say for anybody alive living under a rock that doesn't know what the Bermuda Triangle is, the definition of the Bermuda Triangle, loosely, is a triangle between the points of Miami, Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, roughly 1 million to 1.5 million square miles in size. And essentially, for the last 200 years, sailors have, you know, died there mysteriously. Naval aviators have gone down there very mysteriously. And a standard thing that is said when these occurrences happen is they lose all navigation sense. They lose compasses, headings, altitudes, anything that can kind of give them their bearings of where they are is just gone. But they cannot use it. Or it's so badly malfunctioning that it's worse than useless. It's leading them in the wrong direction, right? Where even if they still trust it a little bit and they follow it, it's taking them in the wrong path. So that's one of the main common threads between these. And then the other one that a lot of people talk about is, I don't know if you've heard of the electric mist. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I believe so. Like the fog or...
Yeah. So it depends on the story. Usually they revolve around time travel in a certain way, or basically it's described a lot of times as a storm that just doesn't look right. So they're flying into it, and a lot of these people are pilots, you know, sailors, and they've seen 1,000 of these storms in this area. And the only way they can really describe it is that it just doesn't look normal. And there's a couple of quotes later that line up with that in some of these stories where they don't even have the words of how to say it. They just know it's not right. There's a lot of lightning. It kind of creates almost a tunnel or a vortex when they're flying or sailing into it. And they come out the other side and, you know, they're terrified, obviously, going through it. They come out the other side, they get to port, and they realize they were supposed to come into port, you know, say May 22nd, and they get there on May 19th. 3 days early for no reason, and they have 25,000 gallons of extra diesel on board that shouldn't be there, right?
That's awesome. I mean, that stuff's just, I love that.
There's tons of those stories, which there's actually a guy down in Australia that had something similar, but there's something to that, and the Bermuda Triangle is really well known for the electric mist phenomena. But this first one I want to talk about, which I'm guessing you've heard of this, is Flight 19.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? Yeah. So This happened on December 5th, 1945. It started with 5 General Motors TBM Avenger torpedo bombers getting lost. They were on routine training, kind of patrol. It was actually a navigational exercise that they were doing for their training at Naval Station Fort Lauderdale. Basically, they went out and there were several planes, and they were all captained by, what is his name? Lieutenant Charles Taylor. And this guy had like 2,500 flight hours, which for a guy that's, relatively young in the Navy, that's a ton of flight hours.
Right.
Like a lot of these guys maybe in training have like 500, 600 hours. And that's why he was the captain. He had thousands and thousands of flight hours. And he actually did a combat tour in the Pacific, because if you look at the date, this is right after World War II, like right at the tail end of World War II. So a lot of these guys came from navigating in wartime. They're really good at it.
Right.
There's the best way to learn how to navigate probably is when you're getting shot at.
Yeah.
I would assume like you have to get out of there. So, but that kind of leads me into what's crazy about this is just that a lot of these people had a lot of experience, but so they were out doing this navigational exercise, and they got turned around and they decided to basically call it. They're going to head back, right? Well, they're heading back, and these waypoints that they're supposed to be seeing just aren't showing up. They can't find them. There was an island they were looking out for. They don't see it. They change direction 3 or 4 times, and then they realize that none of their instruments are pointing in the same direction. They kind of get together and they realize that their instrumentation isn't working at all. So then some of the younger guys start to panic. And even the captain of the flight at a certain point starts to panic. And
wasn't like, not to interrupt, but their comms with like, their base, at this point, were they completely gone, or because I thought they were going in and out and in and out?
So earlier on in this, they were still able to be heard.
Okay.
They were getting picked up from the Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, and I believe one other Southern Florida air base was picking them up, but it was kind of crackling in and out. And the whole while this is going, they're trying to figure out, back on base where these people are. They're trying to coordinate and get a good sense, and they're telling these guys to give them waypoints, give them something, but they can't see anything. And I mean, the weather wasn't horrible, but it also wasn't good. So you could kind of say maybe that played a role. But a lot of these guys had done this flight dozens, hundreds of times. I mean, they were stationed there for training, so this isn't like it was their first time going out and hitting the ocean for a nav exercise. So, but essentially all of these guys that were stationed at this base, it was common knowledge that if you got lost anywhere out on this flight, or anywhere off the coast of Florida, point yourself due west and head back. You'll hit land. That was always the protocol. That's always what they had done. And of course, that's what this guy was going to try to do because he had a bunch of experience. He knew what he was doing. He tries to point them due west, but he gets to the point right around midway through where he doesn't believe the west on his compass is actually west, which is what blows my mind.
That's crazy.
And it's another one of those instances of the triangle kind of fucking with people, because whether you believe it's supernatural or just, there's a bunch of magnetic rocks in the ocean there or whatever, this guy's a very experienced pilot, and he is so distrustful of his own instrumentation at this point that he's trying to point his plane west. His compass is telling him he's going west, and he refuses to believe it. He's going to fly due east.
Yeah, even with with as many flight hours as this guy has, I mean he's trained not only to go by his instrumentation, and even in bad weather still be able to navigate the sky
Right.
to a certain point. So that's a big statement, bigger than you would and for me it's a lot bigger than that. Like this guy, he's a professional.
Right. And some of the kind of extrapolation, or what skeptics want to say, is he was so experienced that because the flight wasn't basically showing him what he was used to seeing, is why he didn't trust his instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But you can hear actually them arguing about the instruments not aligning during the flight. So it really doesn't hold water because, I mean, there's no legitimate reason why their compasses would not be pointing in the same direction amongst the flight wing. I could see if maybe one guy's broke, but there's, multiple different planes that are all having navigational issues. So pretty crazy. But yeah, they thought they were flying towards the coast, and then at a certain point they lose all communication. The last radio message is from Captain Charles, and this freaks me out. And gets back to what I was talking about earlier. His last radio message was, "We don't know which way is west. Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should."
Mac, what do you think say you're sitting back at command control and to hear that? I mean, you're talking to an experienced pilot. I mean, granted, they're probably young men.
Right.
But
mid-20s, early 30s. The captain, I believe, was in his early 30s.
Back then, mid-20s, early 30s, they were more like a 50-year-old today for maturity. But,
these guys just got done fighting a war, so yeah, you're not wrong.
Right, these are men, Yeah, even the ocean does look, that's chilling.
That's creepy. And you wouldn't, this is where I think a lot of the nitpicking on the story falls apart, in my opinion, is that these weren't all rookie pilots. They had done this so many times. And for them to be just saying the instruments aren't working, this doesn't look right, something's off. We obviously have tons of stories from the past about experienced pilots getting disoriented, but this was such an easy navigational flight. For somebody in this flight should have been able to pull their head out and figure it out if it was something normal going wrong, like they made a bad navigational turn or something. So talking back about what they were thinking on base, well, I can tell you they thought they needed to send out a rescue flight. So they sent out a PBM Catalina scout plane was dispatched to look for survivors. There was 13 souls on board when the PBY Catalina scout left, and you want to guess how many of those 13 made it back alive?
Well, I know.
0.
That plane went missing. Well, yeah.
That is the last part of that story where this plane goes down is what really seals it for me that something happened.
Yeah.
And like I said, the weather wasn't great, but it was not weather that you'd expect to lose 6-7 planes in.
Well, if it was, there's a good chance they wouldn't have sent a rescue mission into like some shitty storm that's gonna,
Yeah, I mean, even the Coast Guard, if you look at what they'll send out in a place like Alaska now, there is weather that they'll be like, sorry, you're screwed. Like, we can't help you. And it's obviously really bad, but, the Navy, the Air Force, they're going to do what they can to help you. Naval aviators are obviously super brave individuals. They just, like I said, just got done fighting a war. But if it would have been so bad where they were 50-50 coin flip on whether they were going to lose it, of course they wouldn't have sent the Catalina. Yeah. But this is, just so everybody's clear, a Catalina is a flying boat. So, I mean, worst case scenario with a Catalina, you land it on the water and it floats.
Yeah.
And they never found anything with this plane. And that's the part that really gets me. Like, this is a flying boat that's able to land and take off on water, not even that far off the coast, that's actively being tracked in a known search area that they have been designated that they're flying, where other planes can be sent out, and they never find anything. And they do a full, another exhaustive search for the second plane and are never able to find anything. Not a single piece of debris, plane, body, nothing is ever found from any of the Avengers in the flight wing or from the Catalina.
What do you think happened? I mean, what do you think is the most likely? Well, here, let me back up. What do you think is the most likely, and what do you hope is the answer?
Maybe a little bit different than you're thinking. What I think happened, I think it was some electric fog nonsense. And I don't know what that is. I don't have a good answer to tell people about what that is. But if I had to guess, with how many people have seen it, how many stories have come up about this over the years, I don't know whether it's time travel or if it's a dimensional thing or where these planes go or where they end up. But, the ocean's a really big place, granted. Don't get me wrong, but tens of thousands of people have looked in a known search area for these planes for 70 some years. Never found anything, right? Especially the Catalina. That's a big plane. Somebody should have found the Catalina at some point in the last, 3/4 of a century. So I think they flew into that. I think that's why multiple of the pilots and the captain himself were saying, it doesn't look right. Something's weird here. And they know, they're cognizant of the fact that they're on recorded military radio. So they're probably not going to say we're flying into electric time fog.
Right, right.
They don't want to. This is 1945. So these guys don't want to lose their jobs or get psych pulled or anything like that. Anybody that works in an industry like that, you say something like that can easily get a psych eval and lose your job. So I'm guessing he was saying it in the only way he knew that he could, that would make it sound odd enough where people would understand what he meant, while also precluding him getting fired if he did survive.
Well, that, and, regardless of his experience level, if it's something he'd never experienced before, obviously it's going to get his adrenaline up, confusion. That's the other thing is, was there some external factor that, messed with their brains?
Right.
So maybe they're a little bit of a hallucination going on.
That's a great point. And that's a common thread, I think, not even just with Bermuda Triangle mysteries, but with a lot of water mysteries. And even, you talk about like USO bases, UFO bases underwater. There's been stories of sub-captains. This is not a verified story, by the way. This is on like 4chan, but I'll tell it anyway. Yeah, super reliable information. But supposedly a submarine captain posted on a 4chan forum that he was in charge of a submarine that was sailing into the Bermuda Triangle. And he was under orders to check out what was essentially it was an alien base that's creating UFOs, but it's underwater. So the base itself is a USO. It's floating, but it's what's building these drones that fly around.
Yeah.
And this was right around the time that the drone flap was happening in New Jersey. It's a year or two ago now, whatever that was. And basically what happened is when he got within, I think it was a nautical mile of where the coordinates were marked for this thing, he got a message in his brain that the whole crew did that said, turn around now or you will be destroyed. And they kept going and they got, a half mile closer and they got it again. And they literally disobeyed orders and turned around and moved the sub. And apparently another sub that had been on that same mission, that was, and this is where it kind of gets weird. It's supposedly like a CIA sub. Who knows if the CIA has subs, but supposedly another sub was lost at sea, doing a similar thing decades ago. And I think it was like USS Scorpion. It was one of the ones that actually was lost at sea, but it's disputed how it was lost.
Yeah.
Because there has been a lot of submarine stuff where the CIA will not commandeer a boat, but it'll be for the auspices of a CIA mission, right? So it kind of all builds on that lore of like what could be out there, and it is weird. It's just weird how these big, deep bodies of water, because there's no certainty of what is at the bottom of them, it really leaves your mind up to wonder.
Yeah. I mean, this is a little bit switching gears, which is fine, but I wish I could remember what it's called, the lake within an ocean.
Oh, sure.
Have you seen that where like it's like one of those little subs, but it's like a guy who goes out and like a little
submersible kind of
thing?
Or?
Yeah, like a submersible, but I think it's like this is for like serious exploration, right?
Oh, sure. Like the one that imploded.
Yeah.
Similar deal.
Yeah, something like that.
I gotcha.
But
they have different names, but
yeah, I don't know what it is, but like, yeah. So I can't remember if it was just like, I might have heard multiple stories, but like, say this big ring and they can see, they're in the ocean, but they could see what looks like a lake with like, an edge. Yeah. And they try to submerge their submersible and they can't go in. So that's creepy.
When you say, I have not heard this story exactly. So when you say they can't go in, it just refuses to let them enter.
It's like too dense.
Weird.
Yeah. So like it's still water. And maybe it's the difference between ocean water and fresh water.
Sure,
I don't
salinity
know.
difference or whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, it won't let them in. That's weird.
That is weird. And I mean, some of that stuff is real because you look at like a river delta, like the Mississippi River Delta, where it comes into the Gulf, or even like the St. Croix River, Mississippi River, where they come together. You can clearly see the water does not want to mix. Anybody that lives next to, where a river joins an ocean or a river joins another river, they do not want to mix. You can see the difference even probably a half mile down from where the rivers join. It's kind of weird. It's strange how, water just wants to stay together.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the Mississippi and the St. Croix, it's because one is extremely dirty.
Yeah.
That makes it easy for people like us to tell.
One is brown, one is blue. But it is strange. And I mean, there's so much more about the ocean to, you talk about, like stuff. I mean, we don't have to go super deep into this, but I mean, I'm sure you've heard all the Titanic stories, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot, anyway.
I mean, and there's about a million different ways you can go with the Titanic, whether you think it was an inside job, it was planned by the bankers to take out the good bankers that wanted to stop the Federal Reserve System, the whole Jekyll Island thing. There's a million ways to go with it. But, I mean, that just perfectly sums up the lore of the ocean, that a supposedly unsinkable ship that had just launched immediately hits an iceberg and sinks. And I mean, obviously they found that wreck, but it took them a while.
Right. But that plays in, that always makes me wonder, just because I'm such a skeptic on pretty much everything. If it were an inside job, that's perfect. That's a great way to play it up into that lore, Well,
because nobody takes it seriously.
Well, and who's going to verify this stuff? People like us. I mean, how do you verify most of that stuff?
Yeah. That's how I feel about most conspiracy theories, to be honest with you. Nobody really can ever know if there's any truth to it, because the 20 people that know aren't going to say, and the rest of us are just crazy people like me and you talking about it in a fucking attic somewhere, trying to tell the world, and nobody listens. But I mean, it's all just conjecture. And I think the common thread that holds a lot of us together, and like whatever the mystery community or the conspiracy community, is that we just don't believe the common thread, the bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, and it's probably different levels for a lot of us, and I just feel like maybe it's just you get a little saltier as you get older, but I mean, I look back on all of history, and I'm like, the longer and the farther back I look, the less shit I believe. And it's like, if it's like the mainstream narrative, I'm pretty much not interested for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm bored with it. I think it's bullshit. And I think that the alternate realities, the ones we're actually living in, they're more believable too.
What do the rich people believe? They clearly believe the alternate. They want regular people to believe the status quo. But you see, these emails, whether it's in the Epstein files or in any number of other leaks from, higher placed individuals, leaders, they're talking about crazy shit. They're talking about shit crazier than what we're talking about now.
Yeah, I think they truly believe that they're serving a God, not our God.
Right.
I mean, I think it's like that. This shouldn't be crazy. It shouldn't be crazy to talk about God and the belief of a God, right? But for a while, the world has definitely made people feel that way. And I think the pendulum's swinging, thankfully, back into, it's okay to have a God and believe in one. But
it's no more crazy than not believing in a God.
Right.
Neither side knows.
But these people, I think they believe in their God. And man, I fully believe that these people, one way or another, it's all about control. And I don't know how you could sum it up probably any differently, but it's mostly control. Yeah. They want to control the narrative. And I don't even know who they is.
Yeah, I don't even know if a lot of them know who they is.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
That's the other part of it. And we're way off track, but who cares, right?
Yeah.
That's the other part, is I think there are a lot of people who are playing the game that have no idea.
Oh, for sure. They have a handler, just like the CIA operates, right? Everything is siloed. warehoused, and you only know what you need to know, and the person above you only knows what they need to know, and the person above them, and it's like a pyramid of control. And there's a very small amount of people at the top that actually know what's going on, and they have a lot of incentive for the people below them to not know what's going on, right? And maybe some of these people, or even a majority of them, think that they're operating for just means, that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, right.
I honestly feel like a lot of people in the CIA are operating that way.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of them are patriots. They're good Americans. They want to help. They're not all bad. They just don't know who's in control of them and what their goals are. And it's really easy to sell somebody on a goal that's not their own if they think they're doing it for their country or their fellow American or what have you.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, most branches of the government, I mean, I'd say the same thing about the FBI, and maybe even more so, or more evident to me,
Right.
that they believe, that they're doing America's mission. But, the results, the fruit, would say differently.
Yeah, it's not borne out.
Yeah.
As what they're getting to. But we'll go back. I can wrap up the Flight 19 mystery here, get us back on track. So basically, 27 naval aviators lost in total. There's 14 from Flight 19. It was 2 each and 7 planes in Flight 19. And then there was an additional 13 on the PBY Catalina Scout.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, so 27 people, man. That's all lost at sea with no idea really
within like a matter of 8 or 12 hours, wasn't it? I mean,
it was within the same night. Yeah, they sent out, I don't know the exact time. It was 1800 actually. I do have it down here. So they sent it out at 6 p.m. and was lost within a couple hours. And they sent out a massive search party after them and couldn't find anybody. They sent out more flying boats, and yeah, it was crazy. But the Navy originally, after this whole thing started to blow over a little bit, they basically tried to pin the whole thing on Captain Taylor. They said it was navigational error, lack of experience, all this stuff. But then some of his fellow officers, captains, started to kind of poke holes in that story, like talking about, he had all this experience. It's a route he had done several times. And eventually they changed it. I believe it was like a year later. They came back and changed it and said cause unknown. We don't know what it is. And, you could argue that was for political reasons. But the last thing I want to talk about on this case is that one of his fellow aviators had said that he did not want to go on that mission that day. Have you heard this story?
Yeah. He had like a pit.
Yeah, he just said he had a pit in his stomach, and he said he didn't feel like he wanted to fly that day. And basically they coerced him into it because they told him you'll get psyched out. Like they will give you an eval and you'll lose your wings, basically. So, I mean, whether that's true or not, I tend to believe it is, because why would his buddy make that up?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's something, man. That's a whole other topic too. Like that feeling, and where that comes from. Is it, I mean, it could be so many things. It could be, I don't know, an angel. It could be God. It could be we have psychic ability.
Yeah. I think all of those are real.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, they say, I mean, in the last 5 years, a lot of different scientists have come out and said that they are quite sure the gut is like your second brain.
Yeah.
That it operates, there's tons of neurotransmitters in your gut, which people don't know that. That's a scientifically proven thing. You have neurotransmitter type cells in your stomach.
I've heard the same thing about your heart, that this is your actual brain.
It could be.
Yeah, I don't know.
When people say they're operating from the heart, like, oh, this, with love from the heart, right? They're describing an actual feeling.
Right.
Because I've said that before, like, oh, this gift was really from the heart or whatever. Maybe it's a state of mind. Maybe it's, something along that similar vein of you have a different way of processing thought that isn't in your logical, rational brain.
Right.
But it's real. Whatever it is, it's real.
For sure.
But
all right, I'm going to share a story.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch here, but this is a classic Tic Tac story. So this one, this is from 2004, and this is, I'm sure you've heard it or a version of it, and it does have some pictures. and I'll share them with you if you want to put them up on this video or whatever.
Yeah, I can. I'll tag the time, and then I can get them in there.
Okay. All right. So this is the classic Tic Tac encounter. So this is the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group. So this is from November 14th, 04 in the Pacific Ocean off Southern California. It's one of the most famous and well-corroborated UAP cases in modern history. About 100 miles southwest of San Diego, the USS Princeton's advanced Spy 1 radar, which is capable of tracking a golf ball at 100 miles away.
Wow.
That's bonkers. Yeah.
What year was this? Excuse me.
2004.
Wow. So that was already over 20 years ago.
Right. That's nuts. So they had been detecting an anomalous aerial vehicle for several days. The objects repeatedly dropped from over 80,000 feet to sea level in under 1 second.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So obviously far beyond any type of aircraft capabilities that we understand. At around 2 p.m., two FA-18F Super Hornet pilots, Commander David Fravor, who was also a Top Gun graduate with 16 years of experience. He was leading the elite Black Aces Squadron, and Lieutenant Commander Alec Dietrich. They were diverted from training to investigate. They arrived to find churning disturbances in the ocean, white waves breaking over what looked like a large submerged object. Hovering about 50 feet above it was a smooth, white, oblong craft about 40 feet long, shaped exactly like a Tic Tac candy. No wings, rotors, exhaust, or propulsion visible. Fravor described it. It's white, has no wings, it has no rotors. Holy shit, what is that?
That's how you know the dude's not lying.
Right. Yeah, swearing, and this guy, yeah. As he spiraled down for a closer look, the object mirrored his movements, then accelerated rapidly upwards. It crossed in front of his jet and vanished. It reappeared on radar about 60 miles away in under a minute. A second wave of jets launched, one piloted by Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood. He captured the now famous FLIR infrared video, which shows the object darting erratically over the ocean.
Is that the Go Fast video, I believe?
I don't know.
Because I think they were both from the same incident, if I remember correctly.
Here, you can just take a look at the still. I think you're right.
That's the Go Fast.
Yeah. Let's see here. The incident was part of a broader training range incursion. Oh, wait. Sorry, I missed some. So interesting details about this. The radar operator, Kevin Day, he compared the swarm to watching snow fall from the sky. The object showed no heat signature typical of jets or rockets and performed maneuvers with impossible G-forces and no sonic booms. The incident was part of a broader training range incursion. The Pentagon declassified the FLIR video in 2020, which is why we can all see it now.
Right.
And it was officially labeled unidentified. That is, that's kind of the end of that story. And I remember when this first got released. If it got released now, 2026, you wouldn't know if it was true or not with AI.
Yeah, it came out. This story came out at a very unique time where AI existed, but it was clearly not good enough yet. To fake this.
Yeah, if you think of AI now, where you got to count fingers of people to see if it's fake or not, and even that, they're kind of, I think, beyond that now. But yeah, yes, AI in 2020 was around, but at least for the general population,
right?
They couldn't have reproduced this, I don't think. So.
Well, and if you're going to reproduce something like that, are you going to make it intentionally gun camera shitty?
Right.
Are you going to want to release something clear? I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe that was their plan. But so it sounds like from what the radar operator said that in the original incident there was more than one of these.
Yeah.
That's crazy because I don't think a lot of people know that part of the story. I've heard that, but it's so much with Fravor's testimony focuses on that one or maybe two, because they say, I think the story goes, the craft beat them to their rendezvous point.
Yeah.
And there was nobody else outside the mission that knew where the rendezvous point was. So they somehow, these alien craft or Tic Tacs or whatever, somehow extrapolated out where their rendezvous point would be without no like telepathically, or they hacked the planes.
Yeah.
Or, nobody knows. But
Yeah, that's super interesting too. Things like that. I love to imagine, like what it is or what could it be.
what do you think it could be?
Well, I think the two options you gave are the most likely: telepathically, or even if it's telepathically, they have access to the computer systems,
Right.
somehow.
Well, it's like with the nukes. Have you read UFOs and Nukes?
No, is that a book?
Yeah, I have.
I've heard a
actually
lot
read
of
that
stories about the nukes, but I don't know if I've
book.
read
Yeah,
the book.
it's
I
really
don't believe I have.
basically. I forget the author's name. I'll have to look it up and give him credit. But he interviewed dozens, hundreds of former employees of nuclear sites, nuclear generating stations. It's mostly at missile silos. A lot of the guys were missile either operators or guards of missile launching sites, and they almost all have some crazy stories.
Yeah.
UFOs deactivating nukes. There's tons of them, and a lot of these people in their interviews say after being warmed up a little bit that they were getting messages, telepathic messages. And also, I mean, the only way that they could, because a lot of these times the nukes were deactivated or armed. It went both ways, where
Yeah.
sometimes the nukes would look like they were armed and getting ready to launch, and they wouldn't actually launch, but you could say it was the entities trying to get your attention, or just showing us like, hey, we can
Yeah.
screw you over, like don't
We
mess
got
with us.
you.
Right. But it's kind of in the same vein as that. Makes me think they have to be operating on some plane of reality that we don't understand.
Well, have you seen, with this recent stuff in Iran and Israel, in the United States, those streaks across the sky?
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
Fireballs is
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
thing going around now.
Yeah, I know I haven't looked too much into those, but there's a little bit of, speculation of, what that could be.
Yeah. Have
And,
you seen?
because my opinion is we're probably the closest we've ever been to seeing a, like potential another nuclear assault, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, since probably the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
It's got to be in the same vein as that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many unstable actors at work in the world right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. No, that story, and again, it's been talked about, but in the broader context of the Tic Tac video, what a lot of people miss is that there was tons of them, and there was multiple different carrier strike groups that had been training in the Pacific off the coast of California that had gone through the same thing, where they had tons of radar anomalies. They, at the time, remember this is 2004, 2005, were listing it as drone incursions, which was their drones good enough to do that in the ocean in 2004?
I guess not that the public knew about, probably.
Like hundreds of them, and that's kind of what it was called out as in the report, was drones. But I mean, the only functional drones that the public knew about at the time were like Reaper drones, right? Like big drones.
Yeah.
There wasn't battery technology publicly wasn't good enough yet for a little 40-pound drone to fly out over the ocean and make it back.
And even then, at that speed, 80,000
right.
feet to sea level in under a second.
Right.
I mean, you can't blink, obviously. And that's maybe why, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's why or not, but if you think about like people wanting to see a UFO, I want to see a UFO, or because I think it'd be cool to.
Oh yeah, me too.
But it's like if you blink, you could miss the whole fucking flight path. You know what I mean?
Right. Or guys that say they've seen them and they're sitting there hovering,
Yeah.
and they blink and it's gone. It shoots up at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
So that's what I want, is I want to see one not moving. Because if it's moving, my eyes aren't good enough,
Yeah.
I need a little time to adjust.
I know. I always tell people when they ask me if I want to see one, and I always respond with yes, under very specific circumstances.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't want to see one and get kidnapped and diddled or something.
Yeah.
I want to have a normal, whatever the class 1 experience or whatever is, where you just see it, you don't know what it is, you're not too freaked out, and it flies away.
Would you prefer to be alone or with someone?
Definitely with someone, but both because of the evidence, and you could compare and make sure you guys saw the same thing.
Yeah.
And then also, I feel like you'd just be less afraid.
Yeah. I've thought of this before about because a lot of times I get up at, ridiculous time in the morning and I'll go out on the back porch with the dogs or whatever.
Right.
And it's, 2 or 3 in the morning and I'm looking at the stars, and there's part of me that would want to experience it alone just because what a amazing thing to experience.
Yeah, it's almost spiritual in a way.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at for that aspect of it. But then there's part of me that would be like, I don't want to be scared shitless.
Yeah.
And I want somebody who's going to believe me, that's going to be able to witness it too,
Right. Yeah. I think it'd be cool either way.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get taken, then you're good. But,
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, or like, they fry your brain or something crazy and you come back and,
Right. As the weird common thread with the Tic Tac and with the drone incursions out in New Jersey and even, some drones in the Midwest, they're all by major bodies of water.
Yeah.
You have out on the East Coast, it was all around the Atlantic seaboard. On the West Coast, it's always, destroyers, aircraft carriers in the Pacific, on training maneuvers, whatever. And then a lot of times down in the Gulf, Galveston, when we went down there years ago, tons of stories about UFOs in Galveston, out by the oil derricks out there, tons down in South Florida. I mean, there is something to the water thing. I just can't figure out what it is yet.
So do you, I don't know. Do you believe that there are alien bases in our ocean?
Yeah.
All right. So I tend to think so too. Now, because these are the things that I think about, so I'm just going to ask them to you. So if there are alien bases in our ocean, do you think they predate us, or have they come while humanity's been around?
I would say predate us.
Yeah.
By a fair bit. What about you?
That's what I think too. I mean, I think... Then again, part of the reason is if they came here after, humanity was, I guess, relevant or, whatever.
Right.
People would have noticed.
Right.
But then I think, I don't know, because there's so much evidence of aliens and like hieroglyphs and, old art. I don't know. But I would think with that technology, they could have come here before us. And they could have came here during us, and their technology, they could get away with it without us noticing.
Yeah, they may have been here since the fucking dinosaurs.
I mean...
It's not like they could have said anything.
Right.
They could have been here for hundreds of thousands, millions of years. They may be the original inhabitants of this planet. They may have been here before us.
Yeah, they probably built the pyramids.
Most likely.
They had anti-gravity figured out. So that's why you could get these pyramids all over the world before boats were a big thing. You know?
It's like that one guy down in Florida built the whole castle out of seashells. He had anti-gravity figured out too.
Yeah.
You seen that?
Yes,
Dude,
that's crazy.
I wish I could remember his name. I should look it up. But man, that is cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you know there was a guy in Wisconsin that did something similar?
No, I don't think I've heard that.
It's not like something stupid like out of cheese or something. It wasn't like that. But it was a similar guy. I will send it to you after, and maybe we'll do an episode on it. But he did a similar thing where he built. It wasn't as outlandish as this guy down in Florida did, but it was like a crazy castle. He was a German guy, and he built it all himself. He was a recluse, and like nobody could ever figure out how he did it because he never ordered any materials. Like no trucks ever showed up there. It was just crazy. So
I love that shit.
I know, me too. But. All right. You good on wrapping that one up on that?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Do you want me to move on?
Yeah.
So I've got two more, and I can be a little quicker with this one. But have you ever heard of the disappearance of Star Tiger and Star Ariel?
No.
I didn't think so. And I have only heard this story maybe once. And this is a really cool Bermuda Triangle story. It's very simple, but it's only 3 years after Flight 19. And it's in the same area. So, I'll start with just explaining what these are. So, Star Tiger and Star Ariel are both British aircraft flying for British South American Airways. So it's an affiliate of British Airways, their South American branch. They're passenger planes. They're really early commercial aviation flights, right? So like, I mean, late 40s, they're just getting into flying commercial passengers. Like this is post World War II, after they made tons of progress in flight. And it's two separate planes, almost exactly a year apart. So Star Tiger, that disappearance starts on the night of January 30th, 1948. There was 31 passengers and crew on board, and the plane was an Avro two-door IV. I'm not sure if that's sixth or it's a later model Avro two-door, and was expected to arrive at dawn on January 31st, 1948. There was no distress calls made. Perfectly clear conditions. Absolutely no weather whatsoever. Calm seas, maximum visibility, nothing. And then it was en route to Bermuda from the Azores. You know where the Azores are?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of off the coast of Europe.
Yep.
So it's a long flight, right? But it was lost completely without a trace that night. So the night of, it would have been the morning of January 31st, it was lost. And there was a huge investigation into this, and nobody, BSAA, the U.S. Coast Guard, nobody could figure out a cause, because there was absolutely zero weather. They did not make a distress call at all. There was no reasoning why this could have happened, right? But if it's just one, you could write that off.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is, they ran out of fuel, their radio went down, they lost navigation, whatever. That happens in aviation a lot. But Star Aerial, which was a sister plane, the exact same plane, almost exactly 1 year after Star Tiger, same exact aircraft type, very similar route. This one was flying from Bermuda to Kingston, Jamaica. So it disappeared in that same corridor. There was 20 souls on board. Weather, again, was perfectly clear and mild. Almost all communications almost all communications were routine up until the flight disappeared. So the very last radio call that was made, and this was the night of January 17th, 1949, so like 355 days later, the last radio call that was made was just a simple notice of an altitude change. It was super routine, just said, hey, the nearest tower, they called in, said they were changing altitude. They went down a couple thousand feet, and then nothing. Completely disappeared. Again, for the second time, teams completely scoured the area for days. They found no trace of plane or passengers or an oil slick or fuel or a wing or nothing. They didn't find a single thing. And like I said, again, with just one plane going missing, you could maybe write it off. But the fact that they both disappeared a year apart, same plane, same time of year, same airway, like...
Yeah, that's just too much,
And right in the heart of the Bermuda Triangle, too.
I had not heard that before.
I don't think this one gets told a lot because it's late 1940s commercial aviation.
Well, that, and I mean, there's not a lot of... they get more hype when there's like, ooh, spooky this or spooky that, and the gauges and clusters. There's just not much information at all.
That's, for me, the weirdest thing about it is all the communications are routine. There's no distress call made in either instance. There's no reports of mechanical issues with either plane before the flight. There's absolutely nothing. It's like exactly like if MH370, that happened recently. Like it's the same kind of thing. There's no reason why this plane should just completely disappear, and neither one's ever been found in 70 years.
Are there theories on the internet sleuths have anything?
So most of the theories are it was some kind of weather anomaly, and not necessarily because the weather was listed as clear, right? But you can still get downbursts. Mm-hmm. You can still get weird pressure changes. So that's the leading theory. And some of the other ones are the magnetic anomaly theory, because there is magnetic ocean nodules in the Bermuda Triangle on the seafloor that can mess with compasses, and that's one of the theories about why it happens so much. So, early commercial flight, these guys have maybe only done this flight a couple times. Newer plane, they maybe haven't flown as much. They get turned around and they crash. But again, for me, neither one of those really, makes any sense.
No, that's good. I'm glad you read that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, and then the last one, this is the more conspiratorial note, is the wormholes or the electric fog,
Yeah.
which has been revisited since because obviously when this thing happened, that wasn't on anybody's radar, but it kind of fits that situation perfectly, right? Totally normal. All of a sudden, enter this weird fog, storm, whatever, and then you're just gone. So, no proof of that, no way to prove that, but in my opinion, that is a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you brought up the MH370, and that's probably something we could do a whole episode on.
Yeah, I think we probably will at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just in terms of aircraft disappearing, it's always over the ocean, dude.
Right.
Whenever it's over land, they find them almost always, unless
Which
it's like
makes
Alaska.
sense. I mean, logically, that makes sense, you know.
Oh,
but
right. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of planes go down in the Alaskan bush and don't get found either.
That's
but
true.
In most other places, like they get found. So it's just weird. And then I have one more story. That's another Bermuda Triangle one. Have you ever heard about the Ellen Austin?
I'm not sure.
So this takes place in 1881. The Ellen Austin was a ship going from Liverpool. It was a cargo ship going from Liverpool to New York. And it was carrying a lot of passengers on their way to America. It was carrying cargo, but it was also, back in the late 1800s, they would carry cargo and they would also carry passengers. They would have people that would ride on the ship, that essentially were tagging along. So it was like a half and half, right? This is, again, late 1800s. They were carrying passengers and cargo on their way to America. The ship had been on the ocean at this point for about 2 weeks when the captain decided to take an unplanned shortcut through the Sargasso Sea, which is kind of a separate. It's in the Bermuda Triangle. It's kind of like its own little body of water. But he wanted to pop through there, take a shortcut. And even though this area was well known for potentially having storms and having rough seas, but he was trying to shave a little time off of their trip. So
It was getting lonely, homesick.
yeah, man, you need to figure it out sometimes. It's a sailor.
Yeah.
But so right after he takes this detour, they sail into a storm, of course. They had good weather the whole way until then.
Yeah.
And as they had entered the storms and rough seas, they looked around and they saw a ship. And this is right after the storm had started to subside. They saw a ship that was out. It was basically sailing in circles. It was sailing erratically. It was kind of doing its own thing. And he actually initially thought, because this is not that far after the Barbary period with pirates, that it was a pirate trap. He thought the guy was trying to feign distress, and then they would go to help him, and they would board and steal the ship. So he stayed away for like 2 days. But the whole time, he can still just see the ship. And it's doing the same thing. It's just going rover out on the ocean, just keeps going in circles. So eventually he's like, okay, we have to board this ship. So they go over there and they're expecting to find a dead crew, basically. Like the crew mutinied, people killed each other, some people abandoned, left in lifeboats, whatever. There's nobody on the ship. Everything is in perfect order.
I think I have heard at least a version of this.
There's a few of these ghost ship stories, but this one's crazy to me. So they board the ship. All the cargo is perfectly in place. There's no damage to the ship, no damage to the sails. Everything is in perfect order. So the captain says, under the laws of the sea at the time, and even now, if you take possession of a vessel like that and sail it back to port, you get money for it. It becomes essentially your claim. So he says, shit, let's take this boat. It's worth probably millions in equivalent money now. So he leaves like a skeleton crew on the boat, some of his best guys. He's like, hey, you're going to sail next to me. We're going to go to New York. We'll come into harbor. You guys will get a nice fat bonus when we get there because we're going to make a ton of money. Again, about a day later, they sail into rough seas again. And as the storm passes, again, he looks over and sees the ship sailing erratically again. And the guy can't believe it. And he obviously knows his guys are on board. So they sail over. The captain this time with the crew boards. Nobody's on the ship.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I
mean, that's a creepy one.
Dude, all the cargo's still there, everything. And at this point, this dude, who is allegedly not a superstitious man, is like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And he gets everybody back on his ship and he hightails it out of there. And that is the last time that ship was ever seen.
What do you think?
I don't know, man. It's so hard.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the shit that they make movies out of,
It is. The ghost ship stories, and especially the ones in the Bermuda Triangle, are really cool. But this one, I tried to do some more digging on it, and there's actually not a ton of information. Some people suspect originally it was foul play, even though there was no evidence of that. But then that doesn't explain the crew that got left
The second
time,
one.
because
Yeah.
they were all friends. You know, they had worked together. It
Well,
doesn't
there'd be
make
so
any
many
sense.
witnesses at that point too,
Right.
you know.
And it's not like they're all gonna just jump off the ship. So, and then the only other theory I could find that maybe could make sense was that, both times it was rough seas, there was something with that boat where it made the people on board think it was going to capsize.
Yeah.
And they abandoned ship, and then the boat righted itself.
Yeah.
That one, if you're looking for a rational explanation, it's probably the only one that makes any sense,
Right.
in my opinion. But when I found this story, I was like, this is another one that I just don't think a lot of people have heard about the Bermuda Triangle.
No, yeah, it's a good one.
There's like 2 or 3 Bermuda ones that get all the press, man.
Well, right, and I mean, probably rightfully so. The first, when you think Bermuda Triangle, the first story that you said,
Flight 19.
Flight
for
19,
sure.
that's, I mean, it's just so, there's so much detail, there's so much mystery, and I mean, and they've made like an industry out of it, or they did for quite a while. I mean, you know,
I mean, like when I was younger, like when we went down to Florida, they still sell like treasure maps of that shit.
right,
They have the whole lore. It's all down there, right? So they've definitely made tourism money off of it, but just the way that all these stories happen down there, they all have that common thread of just, you know, deep water, the ocean, and there's really no logical explanations that make much sense.
right.
Because Flight 19, take that, one of those planes should have made it out of there.
Oh yeah,
And they supposedly, in that story, I don't know if I mentioned this, they should have had enough fuel to fly for like 6 more hours.
yeah,
Like there was no reason why they should have ditched when they ditched.
yeah. That's nuts.
Right.
I mean, it always makes it so much more like the story's wild enough, and then when you hear the rescue plane suffer the same fate, you know, in similar circumstances, it's nuts.
And there's been dozens more since then. And we like we said at the beginning, you could do a 5-hour episode on the Bermuda Triangle. You could do just on the Bermuda Triangle. You could do a 5-hour episode on USOs in the ocean, right? We can only cover so much. I almost think we may make this like a series.
We could easily.
And we come back to oceans more often.
There's plenty to talk about. I mean, and like, I think oceans and aviation, they definitely go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think I'd be really excited to MH370. Like there is so much there, especially with the video footage that they will not deny. Right. I don't know if people are, you know, like nobody's denying that it's real, that it was a leak.
Right.
And that's some creepy shit, you know, like the 3 little orbs and then blip.
Yep. And I was talking to one of our listeners about that video today, and we have to do that one as its own episode. I think.
There's so much.
It's if we tried to do that as like a mini story inside one of these mystery episodes, I don't think it would do justice to that story. So we and I think we did talk about that a little bit just for the listeners. We're kind of gonna bounce around and do different kinds of stuff. We don't really have a specific niche that we do. We love mysteries. We like UFOs.
We have ADHD.
Yeah. Currently unmedicated. No, but we're not gonna get pigeonholed into doing one thing or we're only gonna do UFOs. I like too much other shit.
Yeah.
To not do stuff like this.
There's plenty. Yeah. There's so many mysteries in the world, you know?
Right. And you're doing a disservice to whole communities of people that this is their big thing. And I think what we're going after is we're trying to do this podcast for the people that are just getting interested. You know, this isn't real deep dive stuff. This is a lot of just like having a fun conversation about cool stuff and hoping to get people interested in this stuff because it's where everybody starts, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, kind of the idea is we just like to tell cool stories. Right. And quite honestly, it should be enough to get you to do your own looking, you know, like
exactly.
We're not the news, you know, we don't know all the details. We like to tell stories and you know, bounce them off each other. And hopefully it gets you interested enough to do a little bit more. And then, you know, give us some ideas.
For sure.
Did you want to talk about that? We got a request from someone.
So yeah, we did kind of have a request. I was talking to a couple different people that had listened to the podcast this week, but kind of got a couple common ideas bounced around to do some stories about giants.
Yeah.
And we really want to touch on that. So our next episode is going to definitely be about giants. We're not going to keep it to only one region. We're going to probably talk about the Kandahar giant in the Middle East. We're gonna
Have to. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't touch that and not do that story. We'll probably do, there's tons of stories about giants in Appalachia. And I think I told you this too. I cannot find this podcast where I heard the story, and it's really pissing me off, but I'm trying to find it for somebody. And it was, my Spotify was just on like play the other day, and was kind of just spitting out random stuff. And like, of course, my algorithm is all conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And there was a guy talking about, he lived in Appalachia during the flooding. It was a couple years ago now, or last year, that the floods were really bad. And apparently his story was that the reason that FEMA was shutting down all these roads and wasn't letting rescuers in and all this stuff was because giant bodies kept washing up in the hills of Appalachia. So I really want to do some digging on that and see if I can pin that down. I looked for like an hour yesterday and I could not find the episode.
Oh, it's been scrubbed off the internet.
Probably, yeah.
Well, it's probably tied to one of our previous episodes about national parks and.
Oh man, well, there's so many out there. That's the thing. Like they're combined, but we definitely want to talk about giants. So that's going to be next week's. And if you guys have any other, ideas, questions, comments, anything, we appreciate it. Really appreciate it too if you guys would subscribe. I'm not one to like beg for subscribers, but it is cool just to have that community to engage with. And we're just starting out, so we're looking for feedback. Really,
yeah, absolutely.
Tell us what you guys like. We'll try to do more of what you guys like for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that wraps it up for today. We're about good on our time. We're right where we want to be, and I feel like we had an interesting one today. So thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
A band of shadows is a